and I have half a skippy, so I have a connection with Australia, and I always follow what's going on there. And I have been noticing some very serious development in your country. It's like you have a similar fate like Iceland, with a bad choice in government. So it's like you've gone 10 years or 20 years back, and just recently, I don't know if the law has been passed or if it's just a suggestion about criminalizing journalists for receiving information from whistleblowers. This is so bad that I don't even have words for it, because if you don't have access to information, you can't keep the system honest. And was one of the main reasons actually I entered into this bizarre work of being a member of the Icelandic Parliament and go into the belly of the beast. I went in primarily, and I only discovered exactly what I was doing after a really good meeting I had with Richard Stallman. After we had this good meeting, he said, happy hacking. And I said, well, I really wish. And he said, well, you are a legal hacker. And after that, I started to look at sort of my role in the parliament with a more clarity. So I basically started to analyze it like a computer system. And I started to look at laws as code. And I started to try to figure out if there was any chance of mending this legal code that we have agreed to live by. And to be perfectly honest, after being 5 years as a lawmaker, I have realized that laws are both really badly written. They are written to basically regulate us, while the ones that need to be regulated, they basically write the laws or advise on laws so that there are always loopholes for them to abuse. Big corporations and corrupt politicians know how to play that game. Laws should not be written in such a way that only lawyers understand them. Laws should be written in such a way that we who have to obey them understand them. And laws should not be so, I remember I actually used to code like in the old days, in '95. I started in web development, and I remember there was this trend back then. I'm sure it's like that now. I don't do a lot of coding today, where you would look at code and complain about how dirty it was, and you would sort of be comparing how clean your code was. And the legal code we have in our systems is a really badly written code. And we very often now, and one of the main reasons I actually decided to create a pirate party in Iceland was because of the work I've been doing in regard to freedom of information, expression and speech, in a sort of an attempt to make a safe haven in Iceland for these pillars of democracy. And I worked that idea with Julian Assange and Daniel Domscheit-Berg and many others, but we basically used the experience of WikiLeaks like they had managed to keep the material up no matter what, and at the time they had also managed to protect their sources no matter what, with figuring out in which countries they needed to keep different parts of their service in order to, have maximum protection. So what we basically did was we went on a special quest to figure out where are the best laws in the world in order to make a comprehensive legal package to ensure these freedoms in the 21st century. And I'm certain that this was actually the first time that laws for a country were written in an Etherpad in many different continents. And so we basically had somebody in the EU Parliament, Birgitta Jonsdottir. She was waiting to get her official sort of MEP title. So, but she had time to actually go and analyze the EU laws so that we would be able to come up with suggestions that would be a nice hack into dealing with the fact that Iceland is in the EEA, which is sort of a sidekick of the EU. But by doing this, I realized that you don't necessarily have to be with a pirate. I wasn't like there wasn't a pirate party in Iceland. You don't have to necessarily have a pirate inside the parliament in order to facilitate changes. And this is what I want to talk to you about. And that is, even if we don't have representatives, we need the pirate's perspective when it comes to writing laws. And one of the things that I have tried to do is to figure out which parliamentarians, like before I got into parliament, when I was just an activist on the outside, I tried to figure out which parliamentarians and which people within the system could I speak to in order to share knowledge. And you just try to figure out, you know, I know that Senator Ludham, yeah, well, from the Green Party, has been trying to specialize a bit in issues of freedom of information. But if you could try to target people that are in power to ask them, like, I don't know if you have, like in Iceland, we have, and I wasn't aware of that you could use it for anybody, but we have this thing that when a bill or a proposal is in the process of a committee, a parliamentary committee, anybody can bring forward suggestions for amendments or change in the bill. And one thing is to write in, but to be called to speak in front of a committee is very important. You know, if you have people, you know, that are used to speak in front of committees and so forth, but you need to make these links and connections into the system, even if you are not in it. And it is so critical to have people that you actually, that are on the inside, to train them to spot dangerous things in laws so that they can be brought to the attention of the general public. I remember when I was in the parliament in the last session for the movement, we got this directive that you know would have usually, we get all these EU directives. They're called EEA directives, and they're very similar to the EU laws. And there was this directive on that we were supposed to just say yes, process this. I was in the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I noticed it was on data retention, and said, "Whoa, there is like a case on data retention in the German Constitutional Court about its, you know, illegality, and I had heard that there were various issues in different legal processes about it in Europe. So I managed to get the Foreign Affairs Committee to stop it and wait until some sort of ruling would come out of it. If I hadn't been in that committee, we would have agreed to it because nobody would have been paying attention. And I managed to stop it again with this new government, and then finally in April, the EU court ruled against this. So I'm actually working on, while the UK just is trying to push through the UK Parliament really quickly, further data retention, I managed to convince the committee I'm in now that we should use the summer to analyze how we could get rid of it. So it is important to have pirates on the inside, but what you can do on the outside is also very important. And one of the things that I find to be important for each and every one of you and everybody that hears it is to start to think about, we all know what's wrong. We all spent days and days and days discussing what's wrong with our world or with our communities and governments and so forth. But we don't necessarily have any solutions. We don't really know where we're going in the next 50 years, where do we want to be. And in order, I am confident that the current system we live in it should be zeroed. But it's absolutely useless to have any sort of revolution or any sort of zero the system if we don't have something to fill it with or replace it with. And that's the big task. That is the big task that all of you need to do, is to actually start to think about and start to work on and start to discuss it. What do you want instead? And how are you going to implement it? And the good news is that, I'm lucky enough to be granted to speak to a lot of people lots of the times. And I have become a bit obsessed with this vision for the future, for the future of everything, because we're sort of running out of planet. And if we don't start to bring forward some solutions, we're really fucked. And there's not going to be much of a future for our kids. And so I speak about this and ask people to talk together about, what sort of future do they want to have, and then report later to maybe party meeting, next session, next general meeting. Be awesome if somebody would actually make a group to discuss this. But there are communities and little experimentations happening all over, and there are experimentations in regard to communities, in regard to monetary systems, in regard to cooperatives, and just it's endless. And eventually, just like when I got online in '95, for me, living on an island with 300,000 people and a tiny sort of language zone, it completely changed my world. Absolutely, I just absolutely love the internet as a tool to improve my offline world. And it enabled me to work with people. I immediately actually started to work online and trying to build little communities and do projects to try to improve this planet of ours, or how we are as humanity. And so I can sort of feel that we're at this just before when all these things started to connect, like happened when people started to connect for the first time online. It was a really incredible moment, and I remember the biggest moment online, I think, was when we were trying to stop the Iraq War. That was the first sort of online organized protest that then happened physically all over the world. And we nearly stopped it because there were so many people unifying. And so I think we're actually getting pretty close to how we should, what sort of system we should install. There's been lots of discussions about liquid democracy, for example, which I think is fascinating. However, I'm slightly worried that we haven't studied it properly to see the pros and cons, because there are negative sides to it too. It's quite possible that the people that are best known or TV personalities or celebrities will get the most trust to carry on our votes. So we really have to experiment with this and work on this both in our communities and on a bigger scale. But I think liquid democracy could actually be one of the most important tools, and we need to find a new name because it's only geeks understand this. So it's not really like if I say liquid democracy to my grandmother, she will like think I'm talking about something wet. So I think that, I think more community building. I don't know, what you guys think about community building, but I think, it's not enough to have direct democracy online. Direct democracy is about building stronger communities and understanding our sort of responsibility in co-creating our communities, and that we can't transfer that responsibility to a system. The system is faulty because I don't think it was ever intended to service so many. And you go into cities and you will find the most alienated, lonely people in the world among the masses, and people sort of lose their sense of role and status when they get lost in the big cities. So, I mean, there are lots and lots of projects that can be done. I have no idea what works when it comes to strategy. It was unfortunate that there were sort of 2 internet parties running for last elections. I followed it quite closely, what was going on, and it was quite sad what happened. It's interesting to follow what's happening in Kiwi land. I also used to live in New Zealand. I feel actually more connected to the Kiwis because they're sort of an island at the end of the world, which with inferior complexes to the mainland, sort of. But I think it's interesting what's happening there with the Internet Party and the Mana Party. I haven't seen their sort of core policies. One thing I've noticed with pirates everywhere is that there seems to be a lack of focus, and way too often people start to deviate or lose focus on the core issues. And what fascinated me, and one of the reasons I created a pirate party, was that I felt it was so amazing to be part of like an international community that was sort of being built and shaped as we're speaking. And I think it's very important that we do not lose that sort of the core policies of the pirates and start to want to have our specialities to fit sort of so that we can speak to many different groups. We should only speak to pirates, and everybody can be a pirate. But I think it's important just to focus on maybe 5 or 6 core policies that are special for the pirates, and then it will sort of gradually, like one of the good things we did in Iceland was I just basically said before elections, because people were like confused about, what if we get asked about this and that, healthcare and defense or whatever, and I said that we should only focus on the stuff that we knew by heart, which is, the core stuff like privacy, copyright reform, access to information, and direct democracy. These are sort of the heart of the pirates' core policy. And then I suggested, like, because in my other party we also just had like a hit and run checklist when we created that political movement, and we were sort of confused about, like, okay, so what about all the other stuff? What are we going to do about that? And basically if it wasn't within the agenda, we would just vote according to our opinions. We're very different. We're just ordinary people, basically from the street. But like now, we've actually found a really good method, and we try to find the pirate angle on all the different agendas and issues in healthcare or whatever. And because we're few and we can't have a perfect policy for everything, it's impossible. So, you know, my advice would just simply be to you that you focus on, you know, what drove you to be a pirate, and you focus on what you're confident about and passionate about. Not everything, like some things other parties are just really good at, you know, and they can just do that, and you can just seek advice from them, but you don't have to go into full-fledged healthcare policy. It's a complete waste of time, you know, to be honest. And I'm gonna cut this a little bit shorter so that I can have some time for Q&A, because I really like to hear from you guys. And it really looks like you guys need a little bit more coffee. You are also serious. So it's like 1:30 in the night in Iceland. So you should have some more coffee. I'm actually drinking caffeine-free coffee, so I can maybe go to sleep after this. Okay, so let's do Q&A.
Yep. Here.
Yes.
Hi, I'm back. Can you hear us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. So if anybody has any questions, come up and sort of put it in front of the screen and ask.
You mentioned that, well, you implied universal healthcare and its lack of importance to the Pirate Party. I see universal healthcare as the vanguard of civilization in a lot of respects. I mean, it's something that's taken human progress further, and it's something that prioritizes equal access to healthcare. That's something that I do hold very, very strongly myself, and I believe it should be a strong part of pirate policy. Why do you think that we should not venture into these areas of political policy?
Well, I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying, like, you don't have anybody anywhere in, you know, you have not been able to get enough support. And so if you have too many different agendas when you're starting, you first of all will not be able to fulfill the promises. Do not give out any promises you can't fulfill. Very important, because then you're just going to be like the rest of them. Put as much of these issues into the hands of, you know, people calling for national referendum. Like, my main objective is to make sure that the general public in Iceland can, by a constitutional right, call for a referendum on issues, and binding referendums. And I mean, for me, I'm an anarchist. You know, I want people to actually have some fucking responsibility in their societies, and stop pushing that responsibility to politicians. It's like, you know, demigods. You know, hey, if you want to have some changes in your society, put some time and effort in it. It takes a lot of time to be in a democracy. It is your community and your society. And so if people want to put effort into, I mean, national referendums and are such a good tool, because then you get all the information, you know, because the state is required to actually analyze and provide raw data that people can then just make choices on. So I'm not against having, you know, policies in very many different issues, but I just want to make sure that when we are representing the Pirate Party, that we're representing the stuff that we've already done a lot of progress and work in various parts of the world, instead of each Pirate Party having 1,000 little different agendas. I'm just worried that we don't have clear focus.
To clarify that, so you don't, on the Yannicka's side, you don't have a problem with universal healthcare. It's more a matter of focus and presenting a united front as private parties internationally. That's your concern. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, because we're losing the battle. I mean, we have universal healthcare in Iceland, but they're trying to privatize and blah, blah, blah. I would actually, you know, if we want to talk about taxes and how we use them, I would like to have a lot more to say about how my taxes is spent. Currently, you don't have any influence on that, and I think that's crazy. So, yeah, absolutely. We just need to have a unified sort of front while we get people into positions so that we can learn from each other and so that we are speaking in a unified way. Like the pirates in Austria, like in Austria, they have a very strong understanding about privacy. I mean, I attended a protest there when the data retention was brought into action, and it was huge. There was like a funeral of privacy and coffins and God knows what. And the Pirate Party did not, and this was just after Snowden. Everybody was speaking about privacy and the need for proper laws. And they decided to focus on something entirely different, which is very good, and I support it, you know, but just not as your main campaign thing. And so they didn't get enough support to get any people in. And it's the same with, you know, the EU elections. It was just not focused enough. Do you have to, like, if you want to get somewhere, just make sure you have very clear, simple agenda, which you know that you can fulfill, if you know what I mean. It's like, and actually in the first run gives people more power, you know. So, but work on all the other stuff. Just make sure that you don't scatter your forces in too many little compartments, and you know, it's.
Thank you for the clarification.
We have a question from someone online. Could you update us on Iceland's new constitution and the Emmy initiative?
All right. So, like I said when I started talking to you, we have voted over us horrible government, and it looks like you know there was a national referendum if we should have this new constitution or not, and the majority of the people that showed up said yes, but they are not going to use the new constitution as the basis. We don't have it. It's in a coma, and I think what I will put the most focus on, I'm aware of that we're not going to get it. It's just impossible because there's just wasn't a majority for it in with the last government, and there's certainly not any sort of majority for it right now with the current government. So I think that the main thing that we need to focus on is to make sure that we can have the national referendums by, like, with 10% of the nation being able to call for national referendums, and then through that vehicle we can do further changes or have a national referendum if we want to have the new constitution again, but then it's binding. So we're going to have to be creative about it. It's very, very depressing. My last speech during my last term was actually about this, and I just ended up weeping, and it was just you know, no other speech from the parliament has been distributed as widely as that one, because it was how people felt, but there's just nobody's coming out to protest. We don't even have an environmental minister anymore, and nobody is sort of like, people are just waiting for, I don't know what needs to be done. But I have to say, though, even if it's very depressing, I don't know if you're aware of how crises work. Crises are really great because crises are the only times, both in our personal lives and in our societies, when there is a chance for profound life-altering changes. And so the reason why we've gone so far with the Icelandic Modern Media Initiative, like somebody asked me to update on that, is because it was done so quickly. It was done. We got it through the parliament as a proposal early 2010. The constitution, they were way too slow with it. So once you give it to politicians, they don't want to give away their power, you know. So they did everything they could to stop it and slow it down, and eventually it's now in coma. But there will be another crisis. I'm confident that there will be another crisis because we haven't changed the monetary system at all in the world. And now with the TISA, the banks want actually to deregulate back to 2008. So it's just a matter of time. And then we have something. And this is so important. I don't understand why people are not making stuff ready for the next crisis. There's going to be another crisis, lots of them, different kinds. And we should all be sitting down and actually making stuff ready so that we can push it through during this very tiny, tiny little window of opportunity for change when the crisis is, passing over. It's always very short. You have maybe 1 or 2 years to get these changes done, usually just a year. So yeah, the constitution is in that in a coma, but it's ready. So when the next crisis will come, we will try to enforce it. The Icelandic Modern Media Initiative is in a really slow phase. The ministry that is supposed to be writing or be sort of in charge of writing the laws created a new steering group, and so it sort of passed over to the next or this current government, which is positive, but they're very slow, and it's just very painful for me because I'm a very impatient person. So because they're so slow, we're actually working on during the summer break. There's a summer break in Iceland right now. So we are working on both the data retention part, which is nearly ready, and we're working on intermediary protection, and we're going to throw in something to define net neutrality, which was ironically in the new constitution, which we are not having. So we're working very hard on it. We are too few. We only have 3 parliamentarians, and we don't have an office. We don't have staff. I don't have an assistant, and we have 1 staff for the parliamentary group by pretending that we have leader. So because the leaders in the opposition, they get to have an assistant, so we pretend that we have leader, which is the staff for the entire group. A little hack that I used in my other party. Anyway, so we're we're also happy to say starting to put together an advisory board for IMMI. I have just created a new website for the institute, and the English version is just en.immi.is. And there are all the updates on all the progresses are there, and I forced myself to learn how to do WordPress, because the other webpage was a disgrace. So just have a look there, and you can always send inquiries if something is not clear. We try to update it on a very regular basis now. So, but most of this job is just done on a volunteer basis still.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for speaking to us, Birgitta. Round of applause for Birgitta.
Thank you.
It was great having you. Lots of insights. There'll certainly be more discussion about what you've said today. But yeah, right. I think that'll be the end of the broadcast. We've got to get on to other stuff. So thanks again for speaking to us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and good luck with everything. And just make sure to have fun.
We will. Thank you.